So I think we are now live. I'm going to just double check that I'm going to be able to hear Jen because this is a new setup. This is going to get a little bit meta. So can you start talking and doing a little bit of an intro? Right, might leave it there just until I confirm that you're not like wasting your time. Oh no, it's not working. Okay, so I have an alternative that I can try. And I know what to do with that. So I can do loop back. This is really looking behind the curtain, people. Where it is. Okay, so I need to... You can see right into it. Yeah, because now we're watching the screen. So it's... hold on, I just need to do browser... add Chrome, Google Chrome. Can you talk? Okay, 1 second. I need to unmute you. Unmute you. Now can you talk? Okay, so I can hear you twice, but I'm just going to have to deal with that. And then I'm going to do audio input capture. Chrome, go, default, browser, go. And
this is so funny. Now can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And I can see the levels going up. So you can you can do the intro, and I trust that it's going to work.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 4 of May I Ask a Question? This is the live stream where Chris Manson and I pick up questions on Stack Overflow, and we try to live stream our answers as well as reproducing the problems and chatting a little bit about some of the best practices in front-end web development. Chris, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, so I am Chris Manson. You may not guess it, but I do live streaming quite regularly nowadays. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe it's because I'm getting too fancy and I've got 2 computers doing all this stuff now. And I've gone a bit overboard. But I do a lot of open source stuff and love Ember. So I love getting together once a year and doing May I Ask a Question? So hopefully...
Great.
It'll be a bit smoother next week if we're doing another one next week or the following week or whenever we do our next one.
Yep, and I'm Jen Weber, and Chris and I have been working together on the Ember Learning core team for years at this point, and so doing some stuff like this is one of our favorite hobbies. So, Chris, I've had a look through this list, and like similar years, I've sent you a link as well. If you go to, or you can add some filters onto
Discord,
this,
you
so I
sent
can
me a
just
link.
tell you what they are. Yes, so I can just tell you what the filters are if you'd like to help us find our questions.
Let's do that because that might be easier.
Okay. The filters. So oh my. All right.
Right.
We start our live stream by choosing a question, and so what I suggest doing is in the search bar where you type Ember, add has accepted : no, with no spaces, no underlines, all lowercase.
So you do it all in here.
Yeah.
Has
or
accepted. Is accepted. This one.
Oh. Yeah, maybe the filters are different in the rear URL than mine. And then you can search by newest. You click down there. So I started paging through these, and kind of similar to some past years of May I Ask a Question, quite a few of them have some answers that are quite good and just not marked as accepted yet. Some of them have answers that are in the comments where they're not a full Stack Overflow answer following the Stack Overflow format, but it's somebody who's like, hey, you've gotten this function name wrong. It should actually be this name. And you know, these little hints and things that help people move forward but aren't the full write-up. So we're going to take some time here to page through and find one that either is languishing or we just like that topic so much that we're going to reflect on the answer that's been given and chat about some of the broader context.
So I saw one that popped up here at first, which was Ember.js model from root returning undefined in controller. And well, it's not even Ember data here. It's just model hook stuff. Model.chat messages. I'm curious about this one because, oh wait, it said it accepted. False. This looks accepted to me.
Well,
maybe,
yeah, it does.
Maybe we'll try your
maybe
one.
That
has accepted. No. So hold on. I did a different search when I had a look.
Yeah, you're on a different page than me, I think.
So I did Ember.js. So just Ember.js, not the tag. And then I did.
If you click on. Oh. And if you click on advanced search, that's where. And so
answers.
Under.
Has accepted. No, that one.
Yeah.
Why didn't that work before? One answer.
Oh, you know what? I know why. Wow, we're so rusty, or this has changed. We're filtering for answers that have or have not been accepted. We need the is question filter. Let me have a look here.
So if I go in here, questions.
You can do answers : 0. There we go. So
questions tagged Ember.js. Newest. There we go. These ones don't have any.
Okay.
Unanswered.
Great. Yes.
So this is now unanswered.
Newest. Do you want to click newest?
Oh, newest.
There we go.
Anyway, we'll get there. So.
Uh-oh.
I'm being triggered.
I don't know if we can we.
Okay, let's see what let's see what they're asking, and let's try and have a measured conversation. Thinking of putting React.js into Ember.js and moving away from Ember.js, but I'm not sure there's enough documentation online to justify it. Wondering if anyone has done it, what the thoughts were. Okay, somebody's down voting. I'm going to just undo the down voting of the question because
questions are questions.
Nullvox is see. I love Preston. He's a great person in the community, and he's answered in comments 3 times, but hasn't actually posted an answer. Preston, if you're listening, just answer them. Don't do comments. It's totally fine to answer. Take all this, copy and paste it straight into an answer. Let me see. So I'm not sure who's downvoting, but generally this is a lot of effort. And rewrites are a ton of time investment without a whole lot of worth. For most apps, you spend way more time learning app-specific business logic than the framework. As long as the framework is up to date, you have a lot of nice features.
Yeah. I saw a discussion of this. Oh, where was it? I don't remember if it was I think it was probably a YouTube video or something that I watched that said the main premise that the author or the speaker had was that oftentimes the forces that drive people to rewrite their app in other frameworks, those, whatever experiences they're having that makes them think about doing a rewrite isn't necessarily a product of the framework you're using. That all in all, you can write clean, maintainable code using any number of, there's tons of tools out there that can help you. And the things that arise that make you think like, this is intractable and I don't know what to do and we need to rewrite this from the beginning, are like tech debt, unaddressed tech debt from like your own code. It's like organizational, you know, things are disjointed. It's stuff that was chosen to be like the actual architecture, independent of the framework, just like what is your information flow, what is your business logic, has problems. And if you invest time in addressing those root causes, it's going to be faster than starting from scratch. And like that's true for like, you know, I've only dabbled in some frameworks. I've got more experience than others, and like, goodness, I have a decent sense of how much work it would be to rewrite any of that stuff using another tool. And the work, the bulk of the work isn't like, oh goodness, like I have to write a whole bunch of code using another tool and we have to learn another tool. Learning another tool is so fast compared to rewriting something from scratch. You would have the same sorts of problems if you said, should I rewrite my Ember app? I'm going to generate a fresh Ember app and I'm going to rewrite everything from the beginning. You would still have a mountain of work, and the whole time you're doing that, 100%. You're not delivering value. So 100%. There's my soapbox.
My perspective on the same thing is kind of similar as well. It's like if you got to the point in a team, in a company where you want to rewrite the whole thing because Ember isn't solving your needs, etc., that's going to happen again. Doesn't matter what you rewrite to. You rewrite to the best thing that has ever been invented. You will get to the same point where you are now, where everything's in the framework. In fact, you'll probably get to a point where half of the stuff is still in the old framework. Half of the stuff is in the new framework, and then you'll be like, oh, the new framework doesn't meet my needs. And you'll be like, we'll do the new stuff again in this third framework. And then you're going to have this weird Frankenstein horribleness. And I'm not saying this from a theoretical perspective. I have seen that multiple times in the past. You know, I do consulting, so I go in and help people who get themselves into a bit of a mess like that. And the thing that I would say is that Ember tries to avoid the need for this sort of rewrite feeling by having good upgrade story between versions of Ember, having a great upgrade story between concepts in Ember. Like in the last, I still feel like it's last year, but it's not. It's like last 2-3 years now. When we moved to Octane, there was so much effort, specifically in the learning team and in like every other team in Ember, so much effort to make sure that people who are on the old way of doing things, they don't need to delete all their previous code. It still works. And we have an upgrade path to get from the old way to do it to the new way to do it. And it's just like the thing that I would love more people to consider when this comes up is, does my tool help me go from the old way of doing something to the new way of doing something? And Ember cares a lot about that. So, you know, maybe the question isn't, should I get away from Ember? The question really should be like, what version of Ember am I on? Because if you're on anything before 3.16, modern Ember is miles ahead of what you're currently using. And, you know, maybe go from there, essentially.
Yeah. I also think for anyone considering this question, I would recommend to them to look up blog posts and documentation and conference talks that are about doing rewrites. It doesn't matter what the framework is, really. You know, you could watch a video of someone going from Vue to React, or React to Vue, or Angular, or like any of those.
Backbone to jQuery. It doesn't matter. It's the same.
listen, and what you want to listen to are what are the benefits of doing a rewrite and what are the trade-offs. It's really appealing to be freed from the way that other people wrote code, people who may not even work at your company anymore.
Yeah.
But also the business logic that drives complexity is still there. And confronting it all one layer at a time is very tricky. So there are legitimate reasons for someone to want to rewrite an app, maybe in a different framework, maybe in the same framework, but I feel that should be rare, with the exception that if your project is built on, something that's unmaintained, maybe someone picked a framework a long time ago that hasn't been kept up to date with security patches and things, that would be the exception. Security is very important.
Or if it's actually been deprecated, like if you based your entire business on a framework that if you go to the top of the README, it's like, this is deprecated, don't use it anymore. That's when you should be considering it. And Ember is not in that situation. Ember is motoring forward with big plans about making things even better than they already are. If you haven't seen the EmberConf keynote, I would highly recommend it, just to see what's coming down in the Ember, in the future of Ember, and how we think about big problems like maintaining a framework over a 10-year period, because that's the difference here. We build Ember so that people can start an app 10 years ago and continue to use it.
Yep. I have one more thing to add, which is that so one of the main trade-offs, any tool you choose has trade-offs. React has trade-offs, Ember has trade-offs. Trade-offs of Ember is routing. You got one router. There's some things that come with it that they are what they are, and you kind of get this package bundle. And there's other tool chains, if you build a React app with other stuff around it, you've got more options, right? The downside, I've heard a lot of people talk about, how do I say this? They say, oh, Ember is batteries included. Oh, React, you have to make too many decisions about what to pick. And I've worked in both frameworks, and because I worked in apps that other people have set up using React, I didn't feel that pain of I have to make so many decisions. What I did feel the pain of, I feel it every month, every week, is that upgrading those different pieces, following healthy upgrade patterns, making sure you're up to date on the latest packages and all that stuff, is so tricky sometimes. The linter, I have this really cool linting tool. It's not working with the latest version of something else. And I'm kind of stuck. And in Ember, your linting stuff is all built in. You know that your lint stuff's gonna work. You know that when you upgrade your app, your tests are probably not gonna all stop running. That's what's happened to me with React plus Jest. You upgrade Jest into the next major version, and my most common experience is my test suite doesn't even run. And that is a trade-off. There's other benefits to using different frameworks, but if somebody was thinking of oh, I'm gonna switch, I have lots of reasons to try and convince them not to. And conversely, if someone said, should I spend the next year of engineering effort probably more, to turn a React app into an Ember app, I'd ask why. Is it because you are totally stuck, in the way I just described? Is it because for some contractual reason you don't want to be on Facebook products? Make your list, make your pros and cons. And for most people, if they say, is it worth turning framework X web app into framework Y? I'm gonna be like, oh, please think about that very carefully. This isn't just an argument of oh, everybody should use Ember, but it's the amount of work is just incredible, and all the things you neglect while you're working on just changing everything under the hood is So,
So I 100% agree with that sentiment. And I'm saying that as somebody who is a true like Ember fanatic. It's not just I love Ember, it's like it's a bit much sometimes. Look at my chair, for God's sake. Like it's a bit ridiculous. But like even though my heart would kind of like jump just at the idea of converting a big React app into an Ember app and like people writing blog posts about that, that'd be great. But I think it's a bad idea. I think jumping ship when you've got something moving in a direction is just not great. Like one of the better things that I might encourage somebody to do in that scenario, this hypothetical scenario of a React app and moving to Ember, is I would say spend a bit of time with Ember, like, you know, build maybe a weekend project, or if your company allows you like some innovation time or some 20% time or something, build something with Ember, and then take some of the techniques of that other framework and incorporate it into your day to day. Like
oh, it's great. It's a great
what
idea.
what I always say to people who want to like learn how to become a web developer, I say build an Ember app, because Ember is batteries included. It has so much stuff in its guides. Like you can get from not knowing very much about anything app development to knowing all these different aspects that you need to think about and get it out there. And then if you never actually use Ember for the end product, that's fine, because you've just had an education in like some of the cool things that Ember does for you. And I would imagine that you have a bunch of like tricks, Ember tricks that you use in your day to day, Jen, because
I
you know
do.
you're not using
I do.
Ember day to day.
I use it for all my hobby projects and all my open source contributions. But my day job, no, my day job is using React, and um, I do use what I've learned in Ember all the time. I would say one of the key things is having a good understanding of separating things like, your data fetching and data serialization from display logic. Um, I would say having like good routing structure and thinking about the route, the URL as part of user experience, and like how the back button works, because things like routing and back button stuff built right into Ember, so it's lower effort to try and get it working.
Yeah.
And you can create that same sort of experience using other tools and other frameworks. And like I would say, learning that you wouldn't get this lesson from just a quick tour of Ember really, but having a sense of what long-term maintainability looks like, and
Yeah.
then being able to advocate for doing that work. Like,
Yeah.
when people get to the point that they're thinking of switching frameworks, I was like, must be such, that's like they're in a frustrating moment where like, they feel maybe surrounded by intractable problems, and those intractable problems are like compounded years probably of underinvestment in like maintenance level tasks,
Yeah.
refactoring to make things easier to understand, easier to use, teaching people how to use shared components within the app instead of
Yeah.
making something new every single time. All that stuff, you can make these same mistakes in any framework, but Ember kind of pushes you to think about it. What is the future of this thing? How can I keep it like tidy and separated so that it's easier to change with time, and it's
And
not
it's
just like all the JavaScript is everywhere. Oh God. So,
all JavaScript everywhere all the time. Yeah. So
yeah.
it's
I had a little bit of an experience with this where like, in React, for example, you can have like these good, strong, you can have strong conventions in React if you set them yourself or follow a style guide or whatever. So like that was an issue, but like when I went from working in Node to working in Rails, and just like experiencing, I had the opposite where it's like in Node it was just the JavaScript everywhere, oh God, and then going into Rails where things have a place was just like, I've learned so much. I've learned
yeah.
so much about like how to organize my backend code, how to think about backend code, and I can draw that same. I can see, I learned Ember first and then other tools, but I can see the benefit from that other people would receive if they're coming at this from a different angle because of my Node and Rails journey.
And I would imagine that any Node app that you wrote after the Rails experience was like, oh, now I've got folders full of stuff and there's some structure to this JavaScript.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be everything everywhere.
And it's interesting just to kind of take that idea to its logical kind of conclusion, is that a lot of people who are trying Ember for the first time get quite frustrated by the fact that they can't just throw like JavaScript to build like templates or whatever the thing is. It's like, well, Ember enforces a certain separation of concerns for a reason. Like, if you follow those separation of concerns from day one, then in day 3,512 of your app, you're going to thank yourself that you separated those concerns. Whereas if it's the old adage of like jQuery spaghetti code all over the kip, like that's a problem. Like that's it's really hard to kind of understand what's going on in your app if you do that. And people misunderstand or attribute this frustration in the early days of starting to learn Ember for like, oh, actually it's not flexible enough for me. And this is why Ruby on Rails is a thing. The Rails are there to stop you having infinite flexibility so that actually you can focus on productivity rather than doing anything everywhere all at once,
Yeah, and there's escape hatches too, right? Like I have this feeling, I've done it before, for better or for worse. There are ways to circumvent the framework limitations if you must. And it is not a good idea to do it. It should be a thing of last resort. But I've certainly rendered some pretty strange things by manipulating the DOM directly in a specific component that had to have a little widget, and like you can do it. You're not like, oh, this is the one and only way to do something. You can step into a world of like going back to manipulating the DOM directly and things like that. It's just unpleasant across time.
Yeah. And actually, if we take that idea as well a little bit, with Octane, we were allowing people to integrate with other systems 1,000 times easier because you didn't need to have this sort of like, oh, you wanted a thing in Ember? Well, you have to write an Ember add-on that re-exports a particular API that consumes this other thing. And like that all went away with just Ember Auto import and like Glimmer components and the modifier hooks and stuff. And you can do what you're saying, Jen, this kind of like direct manipulation, but you can also contain that into a very small part of your app that has a really nice API to the rest of your app. So you can get the benefit of like not having the constraints or the kind of frustration of not having the flexibility, as well as the ability to put things in their right places and keep the bad stuff over here and have the bad stuff integrate with the good stuff like well. And I would suspect that Kingsley, I think is the name of this questioner, like if they're having this kind of concern, and I've seen this come up 1,000 times, I would suspect that they might be on a very old version of Ember. And I've even seen people recently who are on a version 2.4 of Ember. And I don't know if you remember, Jen, 2.4 was the last version that you could install the what was it, classic template something. I can't remember what the name of the add-on was.
I don't remember any.
But it was like it was like a way to still do 1.x stuff in a 2. for
Oh
app.
goodness.
So it wasn't a 2.4 app, it was a 1.x app, and they had super frustrations using that
Oh,
because it's
yeah, that,
awful. It's like, what, 8 years old, 6 years old? It's like it's not defunct, but it's like really
yeah,
deprecated technology, you know? So
yeah. I
if
mean
you're
that.
go ahead, sir.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, if you're having that frustration of, like, maybe first thing to do is not try to move off Ember, but try and upgrade. And I say this to everybody, come and join the Ember community Discord, because if you say, I have this problem when I'm trying to upgrade, thousands of people will want to help you. Like, they will
Yeah,
come
yeah,
and they will come out of the woodwork to help you, because we're a great community. We like to do that. And Preston, Nullvox Populi, will probably be one of those people who's like literally walking through whatever lines of code to help you.
yeah. There's I also think, we see people on these older versions of Ember. I think of that as a symptom of the underinvestment in maintenance tasks
Yeah.
as well. And
Yeah,
so
that's a very
the
good point.
question sometimes, we don't know what this person's situation is, but sometimes the real question to ask is, how do I get my company or my manager or my team or whatever to invest in the necessary refactor or upgrade or whatever that we need, which can be entirely its own. May I ask a question? If I could summarize, we're not going to type out the answer here for this person live because that's not entertaining to watch. But what I would say is something like, I'll have a question of a turn of like, can you share some of the details of the problems you are hoping that switching frameworks will solve for you? What do you think are the trade-offs, risks, and benefits? Let's say, how old is your app? How many people are working on it? Because all of those factors are what inform this more generic question. Is like, independent of framework, you've got to make a very detailed doc that describes all of your risks, benefits, trade-offs, all of that stuff in order to really answer this question. If somebody's saying to you, oh, I tried to do this and it was a nightmare, or, oh, I tried to do this and it was the best thing I ever done for the company, those things can both be true. And whether it's the right choice or not for those companies, for those teams, is highly context dependent on like where you're at in the development journey. And if you say, oh, the code's all just a mess and it's like unmaintainable, like, well, it got unmaintainable by under investing in maintenance. So you better figure that out too, or figure that out instead, and you can start to tease apart these problems. I mean, this is what makes software development hard. We always laugh about like, oh, just moving buttons around on a page, but like, this like the complexity becomes to a point no one can hold it all in their heads anymore, and we have to plan for that, and we have to look back at what we're doing all the time and try to figure out, what do we need to change about the past in order to move forward. So I feel for people who come to this question. I don't think anybody takes it lightly. I do think that it's the sort of thing where it can seem like the magic bullet, and often it is not. Sometimes it's the right thing, but often it's not.
Yeah. And I think it's like what you said about putting together this document that's all the pros and cons, etc. Like, the thing that you have to be very aware of is that you are biting off an incredibly large project if you're moving from one to the other. And if you are currently under investing in maintenance, like, you have to add that as well as the project of converting from one to the other, because you have to put that maintenance in. Doesn't matter which framework you're using. You have to do it in Ember, you have to do it in React, you have to do it in Svelte, you have to do it in Vue, you have to maintain your code over time. So
Yep.
you have essentially a large new amount of work that you're adding on top of another large new amount of work that you have to consider adding to your workflow.
Yep. Yep. I mean, I guess the exception there is like early stage apps. You know, if apps only existed for a year, it started as one person's work, and now you're growing the team, and there's, you know, a wish to change things. That's also a different scenario than, you know, this app is 6 years old or whatever, and we don't know what we're doing to move forward. Like, those are two super different scenarios as well. So, you know, these trade-offs, they're so different depending on where you're at. Yeah.
Cool. I think that's a good answer. Like, I know we talked a lot about this, but I think what I'll probably do is I'll probably work on the transcript of this video, and then we can drop that into a file and like edit it down.
Yeah, we're gonna have to edit this way down.
Get out the red marker. Like, nope.
Yeah.
But there's some good points that really should be there.
Kingsley and other people stuck in this situation, good luck. It is challenging, and we wish you the best in navigating whatever it is that's brought you to this moment and wherever you're going forward. You know, at the end of the day, try to deliver a great user experience, try to make sure it's accessible. That is the best we can do.
Exactly. And I, being an Ember guy, obviously, you know, it's important to me that more people use Ember, but if moving off Ember is the right thing for your product, your team, your company, that's fine. Don't feel any guilt if people are coming in and saying, you know, oh, why would you do that? Like, you do.
Ignore the down votes.
Yeah, ignore the down votes.
Don't downvote this person, everybody. This is hard. This is a
so
legitimate
pro Ember,
question.
and I upvoted it. You know what I mean? This is a legitimate question, and we can't shy away from it.
Yes, indeed.
Okay. So, we have a chat. Anne has joined the chat. Hello, Anne. How are you? She says, I should have told you to open the chat on your side, but she says, OMG, two of my favorite people are streaming together.
Yay!
This is where it all started. Actually, may I ask a question as why I started doing my code live streams?
Oh, yeah. Oh, the
the
origin story.
Yeah.
Oh, like, well, you know, we get to see this. It's like Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man movie.
I could be part of
the spider. It bit you. It bit you, and now you're stuck with this responsibility.
Okay, so
this is where I can say comment, like, and subscribe.
Oh yes, do it. Go.
Oh, Chris told me earlier. I asked him what he would do if I said, "Hey everyone, comment, like, and subscribe." He told me it was necessary, and I said, "Well, you know, there are things that are unpleasant but necessary, cleaning the toilet, you know, washing the dishes. So comment, like, and subscribe.
And smash that like button.
Smash the like button.
Okay, so I guess we're going to be doing this next week, hopefully.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so we'll...
Same time, same place, probably.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on our socials. I tweeted about this. I'm Relayed on Twitter, and Jen is JWWWEber. It's a great great Twitter handle. And we will be tweeting about this, and subscribe to the YouTube channel and get notified as well. And I'll see you next week, hopefully. Bye, everybody.
Bye.